Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Gerard Pratt, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Colonel Mark Mankowski. We warmly welcome the family of Private Thorold, whose story will be told shortly. We also welcome members of the Rocky Hill War Memorial and Museum from Goulburn in New South Wales. And as always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of the ceremony from across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. For those who are able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and remained with them at the front through until the end of the war. The idea of this National Memorial and Museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths of floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Thorold Toll. Private Toll was born in the Newcastle suburb of Wickham, New South Wales on the 24th of April 1894. He was the eldest of 7 children born to Albert and Hannah Toll, though only 5 survived beyond childhood. The family remained in Wickham throughout Thorold's childhood. He attended the Wickham Superior Public School and later a local technical college before beginning to work as a manager at his father's carrying firm. The company would later become Toll Carrying Company. As a child, Thorold suffered an accident that left his right hand permanently injured. Although he only had use of his thumb and 1 finger on his right hand, he was an accomplished sportsman. As well as excelling as a cyclist and runner, he was an active member of the Newcastle Surf Club and Life-Saving Brigade. Thorold attempted to enlist in the Australian Imperial Force in Newcastle in early 1915, but was rejected due to his injured hand. Undeterred, he travelled by train to Sydney, where he enlisted on the 21st of June 1915. Thorold managed to hide the injury to his hand from the examining medical officer, and his application was accepted without comment. Thorold was allotted to the 8th Reinforcements of the 13th Australian Infantry Battalion with the rank of private, and commenced his initial training at Liverpool Camp. Less than 2 months later, on the 9th of August 1915, Private Thorold Toll departed Sydney in HMAT Runic, bound for Egypt. From Egypt, Thorold travelled to the Greek island of Mudros, where he joined the rest of the battalion in late October. By November, the battalion had returned to Gallipoli, where they were involved in defending Durrant's Post. As the Australian forces prepared to leave Gallipoli Peninsula in mid-December, Thorold was evacuated early due to illness. He was admitted to the hospital on Mudros with influenza on the 14th of December and spent the next week recovering. Thorold rejoined his unit on Lemnos on Christmas Eve 1915, and by January was back in camp in Egypt. On the 17th of January 1916, he was promoted to driver within the battalion's machine gun section and was allocated transport duties. With the reorganisation of the Australian Imperial Force in early 1916, the battalion's machine gun sections were consolidated into machine gun companies to support each brigade. A company had 16 Vickers .303 calibre water-cooled heavy machine guns, each with a crew of 3 men. Thorold was appointed to the 4th Australian Machine Gun Company on the 9th of March 1916 and began preparing to move the company's guns to the Western Front. The company left Egypt on the 1st of June 1916 and arrived in France 9 days later. Machine guns were central to the trench warfare of the Western Front, and throughout the rest of 1916, the company was involved in the 4th Brigade's fighting on the front line around Armentières and into the Somme Valley. Soon after arriving in France, Thorold requested to revert to the rank of private and join one of the machine gun teams in the company. At some stage in 1916, Thorold shot down a German aeroplane with his machine gun, an act that won him respect among the men of his company. He was also a proud member of the company's rugby league team, the Mudlarks, which played whenever the men were away from the horrors of the front line. Writing home in the autumn of 1916, Thorold confided that, "I've gone through several of the most horrible days of my life. Our company had 20% casualties, the shell fire is awful, and the sap's very shallow and filled with the dead. People at home have not the faintest idea what war is." After a relatively quiet winter, the German retreat to the Hindenburg Line in the spring of 1917 saw the machine gun company and the rest of 4th Brigade once again involved in heavy fighting. On the 11th of April 1917, the machine gun company was involved in the disastrous First Battle of Bullecourt. The company's unit diary reported that, out of 5 officers, 110 men and 16 guns, only 1 officer, 15 men and 2 guns returned to our lines. Thorold was one of the men from the company declared missing in action. He, along with many of his fellow machine gunners, was captured by the Germans at Bullecourt and transferred to work behind German lines around Brébières. On the 1st of May, Thorold and 7 other prisoners were working on an ammunition dump at Corbiam when the area was shelled by the Allies. All 8 of the men, including Private Thorold Toll, were killed by Allied shell fire during the bombardment. He was 23 years old. Following their deaths, all 8 men were buried in a communal grave at Corbiam Communal Cemetery. No cross was erected over their graves, and none of the other prisoners of war were allowed to attend the funeral. After the war, the Imperial War Graves Commission erected 8 headstones over the final resting place of the 8 men. Thorold's headstone bears the inscription selected by his grieving family back in Australia. He was ever-loving, faithful, and true. His name is also listed on the Roll of Honour on my right among almost 62,000 Australians who have died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Thorold Toll, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
For those that are able, please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.